looking forward to chatting today. Everyone, as you know, my name is Terry Rice, and I'm a business development consultant. I'm also a corporate trainer, which is what I'm doing at Amazon right now, helping a lot of startups learn how to set up their go-to-market strategy and how to do some testing as well to make sure they're doing the best they can in regards to customer acquisition. So a lot of fun there. But outside of that, I also help solopreneurs build their brand and revenue. And I do want to bring this up before we get started. I actually have a survey right now that's going to help me get more information in regards to a product that I'm working on. So if you can please go to my profile and fill out that survey. It's in the featured content section. It's also directly below my picture, and Megan's going to drop it into the chat right now. It'll take you 4 minutes, but it'll help me out a lot. So greatly appreciate that if you can do so. So there's that. But outside of that, let me go ahead and introduce B, and then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about.
Hello, everybody. I am Brittany Barnhart. I go by B. And I do brand business strategy for impact-driven entrepreneurs using my power model, which we'll be talking about today. And so I work with a lot of like solopreneurs, small business owners who have small teams who are looking to expand from there, creators, anything like that, to make sure that we're aligning their vision with their actual like business development.
Cool. All right, and Megan's saying I need to go to Biscuit Bitch, which is down the street, because they have a good breakfast or lunch. Awesome. So
Nice.
that's something else to do. So what we're talking about today is a process that you've developed to streamline and clarify the process that people can use to both attract and convert their clients, their target audience in general. And it's based on years of experience, but I think it's also like the actual framework is based on a breakthrough that you and I had in regards to talking about how to describe what you do. And I think a lot of people can benefit from just even hearing the story of how we're going through it, because often
Yeah.
you'll have really good ideas and can provide really good outcomes. But outside looking in, if you can't describe how you help people in a succinct and memorable fashion, it's going to fall flat. So do you mind just kind of giving some background on how we came up with this name for the power method that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for context for anybody who doesn't know me, I have been running Powerhouse Brand Studio for about 8 years now. And so, the first 4 years, I was just strictly focusing on graphic design. And it's been the last 3 or 4 years where I've transitioned into doing brand and business strategy. And so, through a lot of that, I've been honing in on my process, learning from like other experts in the industry, and really trying to identify a process that can help my clients build their brands and businesses in a way that makes sense for them. And so this breakthrough that Terry and I had, that Terry helped me with, is we're trying to figure out how can I concisely say what I do, and how can I really set myself apart from other strategists or designers and really make my process memorable, so much so that it's easy to remember and you can also apply it to your own business without even having to work with me, which was the goal, really the ultimate goal of like, I do this with my clients, but also how can I educate people so that they can either build a foundation using this or audit their business using this particular model, and grow from there. And so you and I were having a conversation and trying to figure out like, how can we create this like acronym basically? And it's been top of mind for a very long time. And I was like, obviously my business name is Powerhouse. I would love to have power in it of some sort. Like it feels good to say that. And so just going through the thesaurus, trying to find words for each particular part of the process. And then we landed on the power model, which I was really excited about. So that's kind of how it came to be.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So for everyone who's following along, if you have a service, a solution, a formal way of helping people, it helps to have a memorable way of talking about it. So if it spells something, that helps, or it can be the 3 C's or the 4 F's, whatever it is, but you need a thing, because that way when people ask you how can you help, you're like, oh, I have this thing. And when you're on podcast, they're like, oh, talk about the thing, right? And you're writing articles saying this is part of the thing. So when you have a trademark or a signature approach to helping people, it just makes you, first of all, feel more confident because you are. It's easier to digest and to remember, right? So we're gonna get into that momentarily, but right now Shelby is saying she has her learning socks on, so that's good. Glad to hear that. But let's go ahead and get started here. And the first question I'm going to ask the audience actually is, yes or no, do you currently have your own business? That's when I kind of level set. And then Brittany,
Mhm.
while they're answering the questions, because it takes a while to bubble in, can you
Yeah.
explain on a, let's go line by line basis, what the power method is and how we can apply it to our
Mhm.
business?
Yeah. So the power model, what it stands for is P is for purpose. And so I guess I'll outline it first and then I'll kind of dig into like each one. P is for purpose, E is E. O is for observation, W is for workflows, E is for execution, and then R is for refinement. And so it's this 5-step process that I work with all of my one-on-one clients with and teach people on how to apply to their own businesses. So what that means is for the purpose, we really try to identify what is the purpose of your business and how can we amplify that? How can we create a vision around like what you want your business to actually be? And then also on the other side of it for your customers or your clients, what is the purpose of your services or your products for your clients? Like, why is it important for your audience to know that you exist? So, getting really clear on your purpose. Observing your audience
Let's
and
go
your
back to the purpose
competitors.
parts. So let's
Yeah.
stick to the purpose part. I want to kind of dig in here. This is important, in my opinion, for a few reasons, right? Because again, you've heard the phrase, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Hmm.
And if you don't have a clear purpose for why you're doing, you have your business, then you can't express that. And what I love to
Hmm.
say is like, you don't have to have a passion for your business. If you do, great, cool. If
Yeah.
you don't, that's fine too. Maybe the purpose is to make money so you can actually enjoy your passions on the side. But if you
Hmm.
don't have this anchor more or less to say like, here's why I'm doing this, here's what I stand for, then you can be
Hmm.
swayed in different directions by different forms of influence. And it's clear that you're not stable, you're not clear, and your audience will pick up on that. And what we
Hmm.
talked about before was having a clear purpose for how you're helping people too. Okay, so like, what's the
Yeah.
mission of your company? And when I was in business school, I thought mission statements were just stupid because like I was like, this is like it was a waste of my
Yeah.
time because I went to go like drink or something. But when you have a purpose and a mission, then it's very clear what your next step should be in regards to growing your business.
Hmm.
So we want to double click on that as well. So can
Yeah.
you give examples of people that you worked with where maybe they didn't have a clear sense of purpose for their business and the impact that
Hmm.
might have had on your work with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have had some clients who come to me and they feel just things kind of up in the air. Like a lot of solopreneurs tend to have so much on their plate and all these ideas of how they could be making money, how they could be connecting with their audience, so many different services that they want to do. But all of that, in my opinion, is really anchored with your purpose. If you're not clear on what the impact of your work, like what do you want the impact to actually be, all of these different things that you want to do just kind of don't make sense. So it's going to feel foggy. And so I've had clients who come to me before who have just come really hard in with like, I want to do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, let's pause because we really need to figure out why is any of this important? And then also like, when how are we going to define goals that actually help you act on your purpose? So how can we make this goal actually actionable, so that you have a clear sense of purpose for your business and then for your audience? So a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, when they don't have a sense of purpose, there's just too many ideas and they have a hard time finding out which one should I actually move forward with.
Yeah, I love that. And one question you can just ask yourself when it comes to your business is, what is it for? Like, what is it
Hmm.
for to your audience, first of all? And for me, I create a lot of content. So what is it for? What is the point?
Hmm.
It's to educate, but at the extreme example, it's to form relationships. And from these relationships, you can make money, you can generate revenue. But whatever you're doing, you have to sit and think, okay, what is it for? Right? Maybe you're a consultant, you help people pick the right office space. What is it for? Well, I want to help people avoid mistakes. And they might have a really good
Hmm.
idea, in regards to what they want to do, but they're doing it in the wrong spot. So what is it for? I save people the heartache and the frustration of making a bad decision because gosh, that happened to me before and that's how I got in this business. So whatever you're doing, if you can just like literally distill down like what is it for? What is it for? What is it for?
Hmm.
And just take some time with this, you'll have a clearer mission. And when I say, what my mission is, I used to work in corporate, right? So I'm at Amazon right now, right? And I used to consult companies like Walmart. And I always say to myself, look, I don't want my legacy to be defined by the fact that I helped Walmart sell more socks. I want to help
Mhm.
individuals monetize their knowledge, right? So they can reward themselves on their own terms and have more time for the people and opportunities that matter most. So that's my purpose. So there's times when I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out stuff like a button's not working or whatever it is. If I can dial back to my purpose and why it's so important to me, then I can put in that extra work. But again, if you can't answer that question, what is it for? It just feels like work,
Mhm.
and it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, all right, cool. So everyone, that's your homework is what is it for? And let me know when you, yeah, actually, let me know what you land on. If you want to go ahead and just enter
Yeah.
that as a comment, you can think about it because it took me some time too. But enter that as a comment, like what is the purpose of your business, right? And
Mhm.
don't be like super self-serving, like, oh, I want to help people. Like, what's in it for you too? You get an
Mhm.
intrinsic reward from
Yeah.
helping people um,
Yeah.
as well. But all right, cool. Let's go to the next part. I forgot how to spell power.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, so observing your audience and your competitors. So this is really important because I find that a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with really miss out on creating an experience for their audience. And by experience, I mean really identifying how do people interact with your business from when they're becoming kind of problem aware to when they're working with you to when they're advocating for you. And so the observation piece is all about reaching out to your audience, figuring out what they actually need and what they're asking for through social listening, looking at your competitors and figuring out like what are they doing? What are people complaining about in terms of their products? How can I fit a market need right now? And so it's really about just observing the state of things to really carve out your unique space with your business.
Speaking of observing and getting audience research, if you go to my profile, I have a link there to a survey. I would love all of you to fill out. I'm building this new product out. And if you could fill that survey out, it'll take you 4 minutes. That'd be great. It's in my featured content and directly under my picture in my profile. But let's go deeper on social
Yeah,
listening because it's
yeah.
the easiest way to observe your audience. And I love telling this
Mhm.
story because often founders feel like they already know everything about their audience. And you know
Yeah.
what? That might be true. Let's pretend it is, but your audience changes. And one of my friends
Mhm.
and former clients is a sleep health educator. She helps people get more sleep. And she started doing some research, some observation during 2020 on Reddit to see if people's behavior around sleep had changed. And lo and behold, it had. And she found a subset of people who previously didn't have challenges getting sleep, who all of a sudden were just having all these big problems. And they were
Mhm.
teachers who were not used to teaching in front of a screen like this and getting blue light in their eye, and not used to having parents like me email them, in the middle of the night saying, "How come my daughter can't read?" So, as a result of observing her audience, she built out a new feature, a new service where she would help teachers get more sleep. She sold that on an individual level and then sold it on a school level and eventually a district level. So that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's revenue in
Mhm.
putting in this work of observing and doing this
Yeah.
this this social listening. But my question for you is, I'm sure this has happened before. Why do you feel some entrepreneurs or brands are averse to doing this research, this observation?
A lot of the time with the work that I do with my clients, they are averse to it because of the time it takes, in all reality. They have these ideas, they just want to execute on them, they want to make the money, and they want to kind of just get it done, basically. Um, Social listening does take time. It does take effort to ask the right questions, find the right spaces, and to actually thoughtfully revise either your product offering or your service offering, whatever it might be. It's it takes a lot of time, and so most often when a new client comes to me and I'm like, "We're going to do audience research and audience outreach," they're like, "Do I have to?" And I'm like, "I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. But in reality, if we actually take this time now while we're together to really figure out how people are talking about you, what they're asking for, why they even need it, we can use that in all of your messaging, on your social media content, your website, how you format your services. Like it impacts so much.
One of my clients, I was talking to them about doing audience research. I'm like, hey, have you ever surveyed your audience? Do you want to do this? And they said, our audience wants us to tell them what they want. And I said, "Did you ask them that? Is that what they said?" And they didn't get the joke. But yeah, I mean, this part's important. And the thing is, if you don't have a purpose for your business, you're not going to want to do that research because it feels like work. But if you have a purpose, you're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is a cool way for me to learn more about my
Mhm.
audience and to better serve them. So again, that's why
Mhm.
it's sequential in this order. We start with having a purpose, and then
Mhm.
move on to this observation phase. And one of the easiest ways outside of social listening to do research is to sign up for your competitors' email list and see how they're
Yes.
communicating with their audience too. Because we're not just observing our audience, we're observing the marketplace, right? Because we want to see
Mhm.
how other people are behaving, even the tools and technology they're using. So when I get an
Mhm.
email from another thought opinion leader, I'll see like how they're sending the email. Is it ConvertKit? Is
Mhm.
it, MailChimp? And see kind of where the puck is moving. And that's also where I see some cool tools they're using to grow their email list, right? So I noticed, who was it, Darren Hardy and Tim Ferriss, they use a tool called Sparkloop to grow
Mhm.
their email list through referrals. So again, if you're especially a solopreneur, right, it gets lonely real quick, but that's almost by design because you're not doing enough observation of your both your audience and your competitors. So put in that
Mhm.
work, and it's almost like the whole measure twice, cut once thing. Sure, you'll get to it eventually, but you can move forward with much more clarity and confidence if you do put in that grunt work. So I want to ask a question here. Looks like Jeff is already doing a survey. Oh yeah, Jeff, if you want to drop a link to your survey, go ahead because I know you sent me yours and I haven't done it yet. So I'm a hypocrite. Um, but has anyone else here ever done any kind of social listening, any kind of surveys before? Maybe through Typeform or even could
Mhm.
be was it SurveyMonkey? Victoria,
Mhm.
thanks for filling out that survey. I appreciate it. Thanks for that. We got Almira here. So Almira, thanks for joining. Be sure to
Hey.
follow her. She's doing some really great work. But
Yeah.
anyone else do any surveys of their audience or even like like focus groups? But I've had companies that have done those before, and I'm like, there's a survey bias because it's like normally
Mm.
your target audience doesn't have time to sit in a focus group. It's like you got a bunch of bored people sitting in a room who just wanted $50 and a free lunch. So that's why again, like you can pay for all these cool things if you want, but if you're short on cash or don't want to go through that hassle, yeah, just do a
Mhm.
survey, do some social listening, sign up for your email list, whatever it may be. But that's a
Yeah.
good way to get some good information. So
Yeah.
far,
I
most
personally
people are
love
saying, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I personally love using like Facebook groups and Reddit and honestly like LinkedIn a lot to also do social listening. If you're somebody who doesn't like to do surveys or feels a little weird about doing it, if you're maybe your audience is a little smaller, Facebook groups and Reddit are really fantastic sources of content around like either like whatever topic or industry that you might be in. You can easily go see the conversations that are happening in those spaces. And so that's kind of another way to actively social listen and figure out how you can apply that to your own business.
Yeah, I love that. And Angela's saying phone calls. That's old school. I dig it. Angela's saying a
Yeah.
$20 gift card for 30 minutes of someone's time goes a long way. So sorry,
Yeah.
Almira said that. So let's talk about that for a moment because Almira is saying, hey, if you
Mhm.
give someone a $20 gift card to talk to them for the half an hour, they might do the survey. And it's funny because that same person might be a consultant who charges way more than that, per hour.
Mhm.
But since you're helping them, they're helping you, they would do it. I've also found this. If you'll say, I'll donate to your favorite nonprofit $20 for 30 minutes of your time,
Mhm.
that can be even more of an incentive because it's like, hey, I
Mhm.
know you don't need, $20, but do you really want to take that out of the pockets of your nonprofit you care about? Because now you're
Mhm.
using what's called commitment bias, more or less, where they say that they're, want to support this thing. And you're saying, cool, if you want to
Yeah.
support it, give me half an hour. Lindy's saying, she hasn't done surveys, but she's part of a networking group that includes other designers and always learning and getting insights from them. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
one thing that you're bringing up, and B, you brought this up too, is the benefit of being in groups to get this information.
Mhm.
And one of my colleagues, by design, will join paid groups to do social listening because he says, once someone pays to be a member, just like the quality of the questions is much higher. And
Mhm.
sometimes they also let you drop surveys in there as well. So I'm not saying pay to be a member of a group, but you might find people are more aligned with your persona that you're going after because they care enough to invest in a community, and therefore you can learn more from them as well.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
The question here is our statement from Elmira. Actually, there's a way you can actually pin these so they show up. Bam! I learned that last week.
Oh, nice.
Here we go. People are usually happy to help a small or new business, but curious to know how do creators, entrepreneurs feel when big brands ask for feedback. Uh,
Hmm.
B, I'll let you take that one first, and then I'll chime in too.
For me personally, I find it fascinating and also as an opportunity, basically. I think that like if a big brand were to reach out to creators or entrepreneurs to ask for feedback, I'm like, well, for me personally, that could be a great way to make a connection with somebody who's higher up in that platform, basically. So if we were talking about LinkedIn, for example, I'd be like, oh shit, LinkedIn cares about my opinion. That means I'm on their radar, you know. And so I think it's fascinating, but also depends on like what the brand is. So yeah, I guess it depends. I'm curious, Terry, what your thoughts are on that too.
Yeah, I think we're aligned there. It depends on how much I care about the brand, first of all. So LinkedIn, yeah, sure, holler. But if it's like some like app that I use sparingly, probably not. And it's also what
Yeah,
the ask is because I've seen some emails where they're like, "Oh, it only takes 20 minutes." And I'm like, "Well, so does a good workout." Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of my time. So that's why by design my survey is only 4 questions or sorry, 4 minutes to complete. And what you can do to increase your odds of getting it completed is just to make it short. So, yeah, I think
hmm,
another thing you can do is incentivize people to fill out the survey. So here's money, or you're in a raffle, so on and so forth. But I think it's a healthy conversation to have and to figure out because if you don't, then you're still guessing, right? So I think it's how you approach
yeah,
people, not just the fact that you're doing it, but it's how.
yeah, absolutely.
And Shelby saying like the message and outreach has to be genuine. Yeah, otherwise it's like I'm just doing you a favor and you're taking my time for it. Well, let's go
Yeah,
into the
I have.
W part. Sorry, good.
Mhm. No, I was just gonna say there are some brands that I follow who I think that they track my interactions with them, and then they send me a survey at a certain point, which I think is a really great way to also just like for me interacting with big brands who want that insight. So yeah.
Dig it. All right, W. What are we doing?
Workflows. So workflows comes from creating things internally and externally to actually build out things that benefit your brand. So in my process, we've gone over your purpose, which clarifies the vision for your business and your long-term goals. And then from there, we build out that customer journey. So we identify how are people interacting with our brands or our brand, and then what needs to be built out in order to increase that experience or enhance it so that people advocate for us because like we all know that as solopreneurs or as like entrepreneurs, referrals are amazing, you know. So if we can enhance the experience for a client or somebody buying a product from us, it's going to be a lot easier to actually get more referrals when we have a really great experience. So workflows is all about internally. So, what needs to be done internally to make your life a whole lot easier? A lot of my clients' goals is to work less. And so, a consistent theme has been how can I work 4 days a week and not 8 hours a day, basically? And so, it's like, okay, well, with that in mind, what do we need to create so that you work less? Does that mean there are certain tasks that you're doing now that we need to find a virtual assistant for you for? Are there tasks that you're not good at that you need to hire out to somebody else? Like, how can we really what workflows or things that need to be created to make sure that you're meeting your goals. And then on the external side, for your clients or people who are buying your products, it's like, what services can I create to nurture somebody into my business? So, like, my favorite example is that, like, uh, some people post on social media and then expect folks to pay them $2,000, $5,000 right out the gate, you know? And so with my clients, I love to figure out how can we segment people or like filter them in a way that makes sense. So maybe that's like a smaller offer, like a masterclass that they can buy and learn from you. And then from there, that could be an audit or a consulting call or whatever it might be. But it's things like that to build out those workflows for your audience and then also internally for your business.
Yeah, those workflows for me internally have been a challenge forever, just because I don't know. I just like the way I work. It's sporadic. It's not organized. It's just like it works, but it's like it'll be hard to replicate. And that's why when I fortunately partnered with an executive assistant, Megan, who's on the line, she's like, okay, you're kind of a mess, and just spent a lot of time initially building out workflows so I can just do my work, but more
Hmm.
efficiently and more predictably. So it can be little things like having templates for your Instagram or having a
Yeah.
process for getting your videos edited, sending out invoices on time, like things like that, like things that grown adults should do.
Hmm.
But again, when you're a solopreneur, it's challenging. And I like how you're flipping it back on the customer perspective too. Like, how are you? What's your go to market, right? How do you get in front of them?
Hmm.
How do you provide value? How do you nurture them through the sequence? Because I've seen so many people with really good ideas and really good
Hmm.
solutions, but no one knows they exist because they
Yeah.
don't have the proper workflow. And we can call it a funnel in this case if that works better. And
Hmm.
I'll say things like, "Oh, you should have a lead magnet, right? Some kind of free information you're giving away for their email address." And like, "Oh yeah, but I'm afraid, if I give the information away for free, they won't want to work with me." And I'm like, "Right
Yeah.
now your problem is no one knows who you are. It's not that they're like, they don't need your
Yeah.
help. It's like they don't know who you are." And the thing I often say is people, information is free, but really what they want is customization and implementation. That's what you're selling.
Yeah.
But if they don't know that you have good information to provide, it ain't going to work. So again,
Hmm.
partnering with someone like you, where it's like we build these things out sequentially in a way that makes sense and is repeatable and measurable, and
Hmm.
obviously scalable too, that's super important. So I'm glad we checked
Yeah.
that box off. But I do have a quick question for the audience too. Yes or no, do you use some kind of project management platform? Maybe it's Asana or Trello or Notion. What workflows do you have internally to make sure that you're keeping track of stuff and that things aren't falling through the cracks? And be on your end, I know you're really good with Notion. That's your jam.
Hmm.
What's a common Notion board that you build out for people that you work with?
That's a great question. So they tend to be a lot of the content marketing dashboards and then team dashboards, which people often will customize also for like client portals. So kind of three different boards that are pretty consistent. The content planning is, I mean, kind of self-explanatory. We're living in a very content-heavy era, and it's really important to be creating great content, And so the Notion boards that I'll build out for folks is we create that workflow of like, cool, how often do you want to be present on social media? What platforms will you be posting on? What kind of content should we be posting about? And building out a workflow in Notion that makes sense for them. And then same with their team and then client portals. As you continue to build your business, I mean, like you said with your executive assistant, Megan, it's really important to have documented workflows and processes so that when you hire people, it's a lot easier to actually embed them into your business and so that it's easy for them to do their job. And so a lot of the time it's helping my clients either build out trainings or templates in Notion to assign tasks to their team and things like that. So those are the common Notion boards that I end up building out for my clients.
Dig it. Yeah, and you made a good point about content being so important because even with your content, you can
Yeah.
templatize and then customize. So with my
Hmm.
LinkedIn content, the template's always going to be some kind of thumb-stopping opening line, then some kind of meaty content that's relevant and valuable, and then a call to action, right? So
Hmm.
just again, templatize and then customize. But I was talking to Justin Welsh about this, who's an amazing creator. You should all check him out. He crushes it with his content. His workflow is such that he wants people to eventually buy his online course, which helps you do LinkedIn marketing. But the way that
Hmm.
he sets it up is he pretends on Monday that people have never heard of him. They have no idea who the guy is, nothing, no background whatsoever. And he has upper funnel content. So content that's going to be valuable to, a broader audience and gets them to follow him. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, there's a stronger call to action, like, hey, get on my email list, so on and so forth. And then by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's like, hey, buy my course. And it repeats
Hmm.
every week, right? So that's his workflow. And that's the way he writes his content. And, you can all take it any way you want and, change it how you see fit. But when you're that dedicated to a process, it's easier to optimize because you see where you're falling flat, but it's just so much more predictable too because okay, I need my Monday post, I need my Tuesday post, I need my Wednesday post. How do I do my Monday post? Well, thumb stopping content, good content, call to action. That's it. So
Yeah.
templatize and customize, because we often waste a lot of energy, either the switching costs between one task and another, or just the
Mhm.
confusion and the back and forth between not having a process. And I'm speaking from experience with that. But after working with Megan and having her, onboard me to this new process, this new system, life's a lot easier. Like right now, I'm chilling at Amazon, doing my thing. Someone just walked in. I think they're okay. And I'm away from home right now, but there's so many things that have been automated or just getting taken care of that I'm just enjoying
Mhm.
Seattle. So it's a good look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So Jeff saying thumb stopping content is a new one for me. Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes with LinkedIn. Like everyone, they're looking for content. So I'm not saying use clickbait, but your goal is to get people to stop scrolling and pay attention. And if you don't do
Yeah.
that, you might do what we call burying the lead, in journalism, where you have really good content, but people missed it because you start off by saying, "Hey everyone, I have really big news," which just tell them the news, and then at the end
Yeah.
say that was really big news. Like don't do that.
Yeah.
And Almira's chiming in saying consistency is everything. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's how you optimize. That's how you structure, your day, and
Hmm.
it really is the only cheat code in life is being consistent. But
Yeah. My
let's
favorite
move
new
on to
phrase
E.
recently. Yeah. My favorite new phrase recently on the like workflow and like creating content is like say less. Like I'll write
Oh
out the
yeah,
post, like how can I remove this? Like what's that what going back to like what is the point? How can I remove all the stuff that actually does not matter to this post at all?
yeah. I mean, that's healthy because it should actually hurt a little bit when you're editing your content, right? You're like,
Yes.
oh, I want to leave this in, but I got to take it out. And your
Hmm.
content by design should be as long as necessary, but as short as possible. So if you can take some of those filler
Yes.
words out or whatever it is, then you can say less and be on your merry way. But yeah, let's get this E
Yeah.
down. What's up with E?
Yes. E is execution. So in the workflow process with my clients, we identify all possible workflows that we could possibly build out, basically. And a lot of the time, depending on where they're at what stage they're at in their business, it can be really overwhelming to be like, I have all of these things that I need to build out. It can be incredibly overwhelming. And so in the execution phase, we prioritize. And so it's like, what do you have now that absolutely needs to be adjusted based on your goals and what we know about your audience? So, what can we build out now internally and for your audience? And so, oftentimes I try to keep that to like two processes or things, workflows internally, and then two for their audience. And then from there, we kind of create milestones as they continue to build their business. And so, the goal with my clients is to make sure that they have a solid foundation and that things are working a lot better, obviously, when they work with me and after. And so we prioritize like what's absolutely necessary and what's going to take them to the next level. And then they walk away with basically milestones of like, cool, once I hit this point in my business, I know that I need to build this additional workflow out, or this is something that I should be considering to build out long term based on my goals. So execution is all about just making it happen and testing it out.
Yeah. I see Lindy's chiming in here saying she loves the idea of predictable content types and a weekly pattern, upper funnel
Hmm.
Mondays and finishing with lower funnel on CTA. Yep. They get and Shelby saying she's too wordy with her content, still figuring that out. Well, that was a short comment at least. She didn't go too too
Yeah.
deep on that. And then Jeff is saying sometimes he forgets he does not get paid by the word. Yeah, I actually do get paid by the word sometimes. And like, can you not do that? Don't make it so long. But your point about execution for me is really important because
Hmm.
my goal is always to be as efficient as possible with my time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So even my trip out here to Seattle, I was supposed to be back this morning, and there were some issues with my flight. But I was kind of pissed off. I'm like, man, that sucks. But I'm like, what's the most efficient thing I can do since I'm here an extra day away from my family? Write content. So this morning I
Hmm.
woke up and I wrote like a 1,500 word article for Entrepreneur. I got great content written for LinkedIn. Doing some videos as well. So it's really just that commitment to not just execution, but prioritizing what's really
Hmm.
important and what maybe isn't as important, right? So It's
Yeah.
you have to ruthlessly prioritize with your time, with your commitments, whatever it may be. Otherwise, this
Hmm.
whole power thing kind of falls apart. But again, if you have strong purpose, going back to the beginning, okay, what's the purpose of my work? It's to form relationships. How can I do that this morning? Write an article, right? Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just like, I don't know. You don't have
Yeah.
this true north to guide you. But
Hmm.
what I found is oftentimes people, when they're unsure of themselves, that's when they're afraid to execute. That's when they're afraid to
Yeah.
push the button because
Hmm.
they're not all behind all the planning. Like, oh, I was kind of going through the motions, but now you want me to push the button? Oh gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. And I know you as someone who's been a designer, as a designer,
Hmm.
is a designer. Got it right the third time. You've experienced people who are like, hey, I love this logo, I love this website. When it's time to launch, they're like, I changed my mind. Can you just
Yeah.
share those experiences and just if you want to vent even that's fine, but I just want to show the outcome of what
Yeah.
happens when you don't have a clear purpose, when you have not observed your audience, when you don't have this
Hmm.
clarity and confidence. So do you just mind sharing that?
Yeah. So a lot of times when it's clear as day to me that somebody doesn't have and this is really a lot of the beginning of my career, which is why I started digging into brand and business strategy because clients would come to me and we'd do their logo, they'd be super happy with it, and almost on the verge of sending them their final files, and they're like, I don't like that blue. And I'm like, all right, like why? They're like, I don't know, I just don't like it. And I'm like, well, based on the information that we know about your audience and your competitors, this is a common color palette that can be beneficial to use, and all these things. And they're like, I don't like it. And so, a lot of times when people kind of pick apart the visuals, they don't have a strong sense of purpose because, in my mind, and this might just be how I'm different as a creative because I personally I don't really view myself as a creative. I'm just a problem solver who happens to make things online, basically. Is I love visuals, but a lot of time people focus in too much on the visuals and forget all the back end stuff. They forget about how they're talking about their services, what's built out on the back end, how it's actually being communicated, and then hone in on this one thing that they think that they can adjust. And so, yeah, just going back to your point, it's why it's so important to have a purpose and understand your audience because you can nitpick all these things, but at the end of the day, your audience probably just doesn't care.
Preach. One more thing that came to mind in regards to purpose or sorry, execution is this.
Mhm.
There's times when you're just not feeling it, right? You're
Mhm.
tired, you're not feeling creative, whatever it is. Execution can be expressed in different ways in different circumstances, right? So
Mhm.
maybe if you're not feeling creative or you don't feel like doing client work, you can do biz dev, right? Send out some
Mhm.
emails to people saying, do you want to partner? Or I know you found this service called Podmatch where you can get
Yeah.
on podcasts just by reaching
Mhm.
out. So execution doesn't have to be like this aggressive thing where it's like you're building, building,
Yeah.
building. It could be it, it can be doing yoga, it's to kind of like, take care of your mental, yourself mentally and physically. But I don't want people to get caught up in the fact like this. I don't want to make it seem like this whole hustle culture thing. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
We're just saying move forward with certainty in a way that will provide benefit to you, your audience, your
Mhm.
family, your community. But don't stay stuck because our goal is advancement and fulfillment. So that's the
Yeah.
E that we're referring to. So I just want to bring that
Yeah.
up because I know sometimes it's hard to feel like you're executing, uh, but
Mhm.
I think self care is a form of executing self care. So you should do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite things actually that I've done recently is identify things that I could do on a low energy day and things that I could do on a high energy day. Cause it's just like, you wake up every day and depending on your workload with like clients or family life or travel, whatever it might be, there's so much that we as people just have to take care on a day to day basis in addition to our businesses. And so I like to figure out like if I were like based on my goals, what is the most important thing that I can do for my business today, even if I'm feeling super low energy? So, like you said, it's definitely like hitting up Podmatch and being like, cool, how can I get more like be on more podcasts to increase my audience, or it might be trying to partner with people to like create content together. And then those high energy days could be a lot more like in-depth biz dev or creating services, things like that. So really trying to create workflows even for how you like to work during the week.
Yeah, yeah, I dig it. Jeff is asking, what's the name of that pod service? It's podmatch.com.
Yep.
And there's another one I heard of yesterday. I think it's called matchmaker.fm. Be careful
Mm,
with that because it might be a dating site too. I'm not sure, but matchmaker dot something. I think it's
yeah.
matchmaker.fm, but check.
Yeah.
And then Shelby saying, that idea blew her mind. What you can do on low
Mm,
energy days. Yeah, I think that's super smart, and it can be invoicing, whatever it is.
yeah.
But it's it, you don't want to, because if you don't have a plan, you're going to get distracted, right? And you're going to
Yeah.
just waste time. And Near Isle, he's an author. He wrote a book called Indistractable, as well
Mm,
as, or the other one. It's a good book where you figure it out. Um, he's saying like distraction only occurs when you have something else you should be doing, right?
mhm.
So if you have something you should be doing and you're not doing it, yeah, that's distraction. But if you have nothing planned, you're just bad at planning, right? So you want to make sure that you have these things lined up so you can make the most out of your day, and therefore you can avoid distraction because you know what you should be doing. You're not just kind of meandering about life. It's gonna bother
Yeah.
me. I can't remember the name of his book, but it's gonna come to me soon. Give me a moment.
Did Brittany
All right.
say it's hooked?
Thanks, Brittany. Appreciate it. Yeah, hooked and indistractable. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Cool. All right, B. What's the R? Let's go.
Our is refinement. So it's all about we've created these workflows, we've actually like executed on them, and then over time, as we obtain more information about how it's working internally, if your process is actually working for you and your team, if your workflows or services are actually working for your audience, how your audience is talking about it, or maybe how people are talking about their one-on-one work with you. It's all about just refining the things that you have. And so I think the one of the most common mistakes that I see amongst entrepreneurs is they might have this strategy, they go through the branding process, and then they stop. They think that the branding process is done, but it's a consistent effort to build your brand. It's not just this one moment in time when you hire somebody to help you build it. It's a consistent effort to keep refining and making your stuff better with the information that you receive. And so, for example, for me, it's doing audience research pretty regularly. So I'll do that at least once a quarter to see what's happening in my industry. How are people talking about my services? What are people saying in my feedback forms? And how can I use that to level up my messaging? Or how can I use that to create better content? And then same internally. So I personally also just hired a virtual assistant. And so it's like now that I have her helping me, what are workflows that I used to have that just aren't working anymore? Because now I have somebody else who's depending on me. And so refinement is all about just taking in that information with the things that you've built out and just making them better over time.
I dig it, and I think if we're going on the personal side, it's self-reflection and saying, okay, here's how I was years ago as an entrepreneur. Here's
Hmm.
who I am now, and here's what's important to me. Because when I first started out, I don't think I had any kids, and now I have a bunch. Right?
Hmm.
There's like a whole squad waiting for me back home. So my work has changed, but my branding has changed too because now I'm that
Hmm.
guy with a bunch of kids, but still has time for CrossFit and for writing and all this other stuff. Right? That wasn't me before. But if I stayed stuck
Hmm.
in on the digital marketing guy that I was X years ago, you don't evolve. So I think people are resistant to change. They're like, hey, here's
Yeah.
who I am, or gosh, I paid so much for this website, which you should
Yeah.
refresh every 2 or 3 years, anyways. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
learning more about your audience and not staying, so stuck in your ways. And that's
Hmm.
why I highly encourage anyone, if you can, to do stuff like this or to do free workshops. But any chance you can get in front of your audience, that's when you're going to get questions, and questions create content, but they might also challenge or change some of your assumptions because you're learning more about your target
Hmm.
audience, right? So right
Yeah.
now, I help entrepreneurs, but obviously there's some pretty big marketplace changes with inflation and with layoffs and stuff still going on in the world. If you don't pivot and don't adjust, or at least show empathy for what's going on, you will very quickly be seen as outdated. So that's why
Yeah.
it's healthy to have this self reflection. And that's what I was doing on the flight from New York to Seattle. Like I wasn't going to do any work. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to exist and just start thinking about life and how I can change and to your point, based on feedback that you get from people that you care about and you work with as well. But if we don't do that, if we're so busy doing, we don't have time to be, then you don't get a chance to function to practice mindfulness and wisdom
Mhm.
and mastery. They occur in the present moment, right? So if you're not present in the current moment, then you're not going to experience that. So that's why taking time even for white space, which we talked about before, where you're just sitting
Yeah.
there existing, staring at a wall, staring at clouds, is really important. And the stat I like to bring up is Forbes did this study where
Mhm.
93% of executives said their best ideas, their most creative ideas come from when they block off time for white space, but only 4% of them do. Right. So you're
Mhm.
super smart. You need white space. You don't save time for it. So I'd encourage everyone to do that. Just block off time on your calendar and protect it. Right. Don't say, oh, I
Yeah.
can schedule something here because there's nothing there. No, that is something. It's you getting time to just exist and think and be. And as a result, the things you do will be even more impactful.
Yeah. I had there was a client that I had who always on each call she was super stressed out, anxious, trying to figure out what to do next. And one day I was like, when how often are you actually working? And she was like, I worked this day, like Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Sunday. And I was like, you need white space. Like our best ideas happen when we're not trying to think of these things, you know? And so I think that there's this constant desire to just be moving and this feeling afraid that we're going to miss something because like everybody's online, you know, just constantly on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, everybody's constantly present. And so there's this fear of missing out if we're not actually online and interacting with people. But it's that time away that's really crucial to like actually piecing those things together, you know? So for sometimes I'll have a conversation on Monday and on Friday when I'm just sitting on the couch, I'm like, oh, that was what that meant. Or like, oh, this is how I can apply it to my business, you know? Like it's really important just to give yourself that space and release the pressure of just trying to be on all the time.
Yeah, and that FOMO, that fear of missing out, actually is like a legacy of the Stone Ages. Because back then,
Mm,
when we were like hunter gatherers, if you were on the outs with your tribe, your community, you lost food and protection. So we're
mhm.
like, it's hardwired in our DNA to want to be around people and to be on the end. Otherwise, you might get eaten by a tiger or something. But if you're not at risk of being eaten by a tiger, you probably take a break and disconnect, because
Yeah.
that's where again some of these great ideas come from, and just time to to relax and recuperate. But what I want to
Hmm.
do here is make sure that we have time for some questions here. So I know we have a lot of
Yeah.
people here, and Jeff is saying, turn off social media for long blocks of time, stop notifications, and use a white space app. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't done any of that, but it all sounds like a good. No, I'm just being honest. Like, I mean, there's times when I put my phone down, but like it's like
Yeah.
it's when I'm working out that I'm away from it.
Yeah.
It's when I'm walking with my kids, but I think it's the awareness. It starts with that, and then it's the
Hmm.
action and the accountability. But yeah, that's when I struggle with still. So thanks for that, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I am generally somebody who turns off their notifications on the weekends. Like I'll still check social media, but I don't want that like little red dot on my phone because it drives me crazy and I feel like I need to
Yeah,
respond. And so I'll turn that off on the weekends for that white space.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why I couldn't imagine dating right now. Like, if you're like reaching out to
Mm.
someone, you see like they read your message and they're not responding, and they're like still like
Yeah.
doing polls on Instagram and stuff. Like, what the heck? You know I exist. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what's your deal?
Yeah.
Um,
Hard pass.
yeah. All right, so V, talk to us about your
Mhm.
methodology and how you help people.
Yeah.
Because I think you do like power hours with the power
Mhm.
method. So can you just like kind of walk through what that would look like for anyone who wants to learn more about that?
Yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about it, you can check out my website, which is powerhousebrandstudio.com. I've got more information if you want to just read more about the method and figure out how to apply it to your own business. If you're looking for that one on one support and that accountability, because like Terry said, there's a ton of free information online, but if you want that somebody to help you implement it and keep you accountable. I do offer power hours. And then I also just launched virtual VIP days. And so if you're somebody that wants to go through this process and had a dedicated day to business development, that would be a virtual VIP day. So we would chat for about 3 hours in the morning and actually go through this process to help you build a custom branded business strategy using my power method. And then from there, we would co-work for a couple hours. So you could send me your service funnel, your email series, like whatever you're building out, and I could provide you with feedback in real time. And then we'd meet at the end of the day and you'd have your strategy to walk away with and figure out what are next steps to actually building your business. So if people are looking for accountability, that's how I offer it.
Cool. Yeah, those
Yeah.
power hours are fun because I do consulting too, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting more benefit than the other person is. Not even like monetary, but I was talking to this guy a few weeks ago, and he has a training program to help entrepreneurs focus on their physical fitness. And the way that it works is it's two exercises you can do for 7 weeks, and it's going to get you in the habit of of being in shape and everything. And just one suggestion I made was, hey, instead of selling to individuals, how about you try selling to organizations and use that for their team as a way of boosting
Yeah.
morale, health, and collaboration and community with their teams remotely because it's a remote program. And he just had
Yeah.
that huge breakthrough. He was like, oh man, I never thought of that, so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
just to see the light bulbs turn on, that intrinsically, I love that feeling. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why, again, if you have a purpose for what you're doing, stuff like that doesn't
Yeah.
feel like work. And I'm talking to the guy, he booked an hour call. It's like an hour and a half into it. And he's like, don't you got to go pick up your kids? I'm like, yeah, you're right, dude. Like, I should probably do that. But that's when you're really in it and you're like, oh gosh, like I'm enjoying what I do, and the outcome is beneficial to
Mm-hmm.
people. And we talk about the zone of genius. That's when when you're in it because you get energy from it. You don't feel drained by it. So for me, like
Yeah.
networking drains the hell out of me, but like giving advice as like a one-on-one session like that is really fun. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
be aware of that. I think is something we can kind of almost leave off on is be aware
Yeah.
of like where your energy's at when you're doing some of these things, because if you're feeling drained when you're doing certain tasks, maybe you can have a workflow that can solve for it
Mm-hmm.
so you're not doing it or it's more efficient. Or maybe you just don't like what you're doing and you have to reassess the purpose. Well, the purpose is to make me money so I can do other things I enjoy, and I don't straight up
Yeah.
hate this. And I know if I can push through it, I can go do whatever on the weekend. But yeah, be aware of your energy, your feelings, and I think from
Mm-hmm.
there we can even further optimize what we're doing and be more fulfilled.
Yeah. Whenever I'm kind of feeling that way during the day, if my like energy is low, I'll tend to ask myself two questions. Like number one, how can I make this better? Or how can I do less? And so it's always just like being very aware of like in this moment, I'm not feeling this. Why is it? How can I not do this? Or how can I create a workflow that makes this a lot easier for me? And so yeah, just being aware of your energy is really important because I think just kind of going back to just the overall method in general, it's great to build your business with, but it's also great to just diagnose what might be happening in your business, you know? So it's just like if you're feeling unaligned or lost and confused, well you probably need a stronger purpose, you know, or you might need better workflows. You know, there are just so many blind spots that we could have in our business. And so we could utilize the power model to really figure out like what's actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I'll say is sometimes when I'm doing something that I don't enjoy, like, and I'm keenly aware of it, I'll make plans to never have to do it again. But then I get excited because I'm like, I'm never doing this shit again.
Yeah.
Like, this is this is it. Like this is where it
Yeah.
ends, and like I see the finish line, and I'm like, I'm done, and I'm like celebrating it like long after. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that's the benefit of being again mindful. So
Hmm.
Jeff is saying this is fantastic. Brittany, you're a rock star. So Jeff, we
Thanks,
appreciate that.
Jeff.
And Megan has put in links to all your information. We know you have another,
Yep.
it's like a LinkedIn live tomorrow.
I'm actually
So
doing an Instagram series. So if anybody wants to hop over on Instagram, I'm doing a live every Friday at noon talking about the power method and just really like taking about half hour to really dig into each aspect. So if you want to join me and learn more, we can hop over on Instagram.
awesome, cool. All right, everyone, thank you so much for attending. If you have any questions or comments that come up
Yes.
afterwards, please do put them in there. And to repeat, I want to know
Mhm.
what the purpose of your business is, right? So take some time on that, think about it. But once you have that
Yeah.
in place, everything else seems easier or unnecessary, and it's beneficial
Mhm.
either way. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you all next week.